The sound of hot coffee splashing across paper echoed through the AP chemistry classroom like a gunshot. Sarah Mitchell watched her 10-page essay dissolve into a brown, steaming mess as Blake Harrington towered over her desk, his lacrosse jacket bearing the number 7 like a badge of untouchable privilege. "Get out of my seat, scholarship trash!" Blake's voice carried the weight of 17 years of never hearing the word no. Sarah Mitchell was small, barely 5'4", with thick glasses that constantly slipped down her nose. Her hands trembled as she tried to salvage the ruined pages. Blake stood 6 feet tall, flanked by his teammates Garrett and Mason, their presence transforming the classroom into a hunting ground. 30 students sat frozen, not one daring to move. Mrs. Patterson, the chemistry teacher, suddenly found her desk drawers fascinating and kept her head buried in paperwork. Blake leaned down, his breath hot against Sarah's ear. 48 hours, he whispered, each word dripping with venom. "Get out of Westbridge, or I'll destroy you so completely you'll need to change your name and move states just to survive." Sarah didn't cry. She didn't run. Instead, she looked directly into Blake's eyes, and something strange happened. Blake was the first to look away. "Perfect," Sarah whispered back, but her voice had changed completely. Cold, sharp as a surgical blade. "You just signed your own warrant." Before we dive deeper into Sarah's calculated revenge, I need to take a moment to thank you for being here. Stories like these, where the underdog finally gets justice, resonate with so many of us who've faced bullies in our own lives. If this story speaks to you, please hit that like button and share your own experiences in the comments. Your stories create a community where nobody fights alone. And remember, subscribing ensures you won't miss what happens when bullies finally meet their match. Sarah Mitchell had transferred to Westbridge Academy exactly 72 hours ago. She sat quietly in the corner, unnoticed by everyone except Blake Harrington, the self-appointed king of this $45,000 per year private school. Westbridge wasn't just an educational institution. It was a power playground where last names meant more than GPAs and money spoke louder than merit. Blake, captain of the lacrosse team and only son of the board chairman, had grown accustomed to worship and fear in equal measure. But Sarah Mitchell bothered him, not because she was beautiful or remarkable. In fact, she was aggressively ordinary, too quiet, too observant. And she always chose the same seat in every class, back corner, right side. The blind spot where security cameras couldn't reach, but where she could watch everyone. That morning, Blake had entered class 15 minutes late, a privilege reserved for Westbridge royalty. He scanned the room and spotted Sarah typing on her ancient laptop, fingers moving with unusual precision across the keys. "Yo, Four Eyes!" Blake called out. The entire class turned. "You're in my seat." "In." Sarah looked up through her thick lenses. "I'm sorry, but this is my assigned seat." "Assigned?" Blake laughed, moving closer with Garrett and Mason flanking him like bodyguards. "At Westbridge, I assign who sits where." Sarah didn't move. She met Blake's gaze directly, something nobody at Westbridge dared to do. "I have the seating chart from the office. If you'd like to change seats, you should file a request." The classroom held its breath. Garrett whispered, "Yo, Blake, is this chick crazy?" Blake's face flushed red. In 17 years, nobody had ever defied him at Westbridge. He grabbed Mason's coffee cup and dumped the scalding contents across Sarah's essay. "Oops," Blake smirked. "Clumsy me." Sarah calmly pulled out what appeared to be an ordinary smartphone, But Garrett noticed something odd about it. The device had dual cameras on the back, arranged in an unusual pattern. This wasn't just any phone. It was military-grade security equipment, featuring encryption capabilities, forensic evidence recording with legal timestamps, and blockchain verification that law enforcement agencies used. Every threat, every assault was being recorded in court-admissible format. "Interesting phone," Blake sneered. "Mommy welfare couldn't afford an iPhone?" Sarah continued typing, her fingers flying across the screen with practiced efficiency. "Just documenting property damage, for my records." The confrontation should have ended there. In Blake's world, scholarship kids learned their place quickly or transferred out even faster. But Sarah Mitchell wasn't following the script. That afternoon, Sarah's social media exploded with notifications. Someone had created deepfake pornographic images of her, spreading them through Westbridge's encrypted group chats. The source was supposedly untraceable. Blake thought he was clever, using VPNs and anonymous accounts. He didn't know that Sarah had already traced every IP address, cracked the encryption, and documented the entire digital trail in less time than it took him to high-five Garrett in the hallway. But she didn't report it. Not yet. Sarah's fingers danced across her laptop keyboard in the library, moving with the precision of a concert pianist. Her research revealed something much darker than teenage harassment. 3 scholarship students before her had suffered similar fates. Emma Chen had left school after nude photos mysteriously surfaced online. Marcus Williams was expelled for cheating. He never committed. Lily Vasquez had attempted suicide after months of systematic harassment. All 3 cases led back to Blake Harrington. All 3 were buried by the administration. Sarah's expression never changed, but she created a new encrypted folder on her hard drive. She labeled it simply, Operation Clean Up. Late that night, Sarah logged into a secure forum that most hackers didn't even know existed. Her username appeared on screen, Ghost Protocol. A message was waiting in her inbox. Package delivered. Financial records acquired. Cayman accounts mapped. Sarah typed back. Phase 2 initiated. Target taking bait. The next morning, Tuesday, Sarah found her locker forced open, belongings scattered across the hallway floor. A note was taped inside. 24 hours left, charity case. But there was something else. A small packet of white powder had been planted behind her textbooks. Blake's signature move: plant drugs, make anonymous tip, watch victim get expelled. It had worked 3 times before. Sarah carefully photographed everything, documenting the scene from multiple angles. Then she did something unexpected. She took the drugs and walked straight to Blake's locker. Using a lockpick set concealed in her pen, she opened it in 8 seconds flat and placed the packet inside his gym bag. Then she waited. Her laptop screen filled with financial data as she sat in an empty classroom during lunch. Blake wasn't just a bully. He was running an entire operation. Test answers, college admission essays, even forged transcripts. The price list was extensive. SAT answers cost $5,000. Ivy League quality admission essays ran $3,000. Grade changes were $1,000 per class. And the crown jewel of his services, competitor removal for $10,000. Annual revenue exceeded $2 million. And Blake was just middle management. Sarah's investigation revealed a web of corruption that went far beyond teenage entrepreneurship. Blake's father, Richard Harrington, was using his son's operation as a test run for something much larger. The real money wasn't in the grade changing. It was in the laundering. Her screen displayed transaction after transaction, all flowing through Westbridge's charitable foundation. Shell companies with innocuous names like Educational Excellence Partners and Future Leaders Initiative were depositing millions into school accounts. The money would then be dispersed through various legitimate channels: construction projects that never quite finished, technology upgrades that cost triple market value, consultant fees for services never rendered. Blake received his cut through a Swiss cryptocurrency account his father didn't know about. Or so he thought. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Blake. "Nice business model. Let's discuss terms." They met in the empty chemistry lab after school. Blake brought Garrett and Mason. Sarah came alone. "So the mouse wants to play?" Blake laughed, hopping up to sit on a lab table. "What? You want in on the action? Sorry, we don't hire scholarship trash." Sarah opened her laptop, placing it carefully on the table between them. "I don't want in. I want it all." The screen displayed Blake's entire operation in devastating detail. Cryptocurrency wallets, client lists, including judges and senators' children, transaction histories going back 3 years. But the most damning evidence was the communication thread between Blake and his father discussing money laundering through the school's foundation. Blake's face drained of color. "How did you—" "Ghost sends his regards," Sarah said simply. At that moment, her laptop screen shifted to display a sophisticated legal research platform interface, the kind requiring expensive law firm subscriptions. This professional database provided instant access to federal statutes, case precedents, and civil rights violations. The AI was automatically compiling evidence into court-ready documents, complete with proper citations and federal filing requirements. Every crime Blake had committed was being packaged for prosecutors with mechanical efficiency. "You have 2 options," Sarah continued, her fingers gliding across the trackpad. "Option 1. Confess everything to the FBI. Option 2. I press enter and 47 news outlets receive this story simultaneously. Your choice." Blake tried to laugh, but it came out strangled. "You're bluffing. Some nobody scholarship girl playing hacker? Please." Sarah turned the laptop around. "Check your Swiss account, Blake. The one Daddy doesn't know about. Account ending in 7749. Blake's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. His secret account, the one holding $37 million in cryptocurrency from the operation. The screen showed a balance of $0 and 0 cents. Where is it?" "Being held in FBI escrow," Sarah smiled. "Receipt number 447829. Feel free to verify." Blake lunged forward, rage overcoming reason. But Sarah moved faster than should have been possible for a small, bookish girl. She redirected his momentum with a simple shift of her weight, sending him crashing into lab tables. Garrett and Mason rushed her from opposite sides. In 12 seconds, both were on the ground. Conscious but immobilized by precise pressure point strikes that spoke of years of training, not YouTube tutorials, Sarah stood untouched, not even breathing hard. 3 years of boring you? Try 8 months of investigation. She reached up to her face, fingers finding the edge near her jawline. Blake watched in growing horror as she began peeling away what he'd assumed was skin. The latex mask came off smoothly, revealing a completely different face underneath. "Special Agent Sarah Chen, FBI Cybercrimes Division." She held up a badge that caught the fluorescent lights. "Though you might know me better as Ghost." "Yes, the Ghost. The one who hacked the Pentagon at 14. The FBI gave me a choice back then. Prison or use my skills for good." Blake struggled to process what he was seeing. The mousy scholarship girl had transformed into someone entirely different. Same height, same build, but her posture had changed. She stood like someone who'd been trained to handle threats far more dangerous than teenage bullies. "You're 18 at most," Blake gasped from the floor, still reeling from being thrown across the room. Sarah laughed, a genuine sound this time. 22, actually. Amazing what some latex, body language coaching, and a good backstory can do. We've been investigating Westbridge for 2 years. You were just our way in." "We?" Mason groaned from where he lay immobilized on the floor. The chemistry lab door swung open. Mrs. Patterson walked in and pulled out an FBI badge from her cardigan pocket. Behind her came Mike the janitor, also producing federal credentials. Then Rosa from the cafeteria. Marcus from the football team. One by one, people Blake had dismissed as background noise in his privileged life revealed themselves as federal agents. 12 agents embedded throughout the school, Sarah explained calmly. Your little grade-selling operation? Child's play. We were after the real prize. Blake's phone erupted with his father's ringtone, the opening notes of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony that Richard Harrington thought made him seem cultured. "Put it on speaker," Sarah commanded. With trembling fingers, Blake complied. His father's voice boomed through the lab, panic barely contained beneath his usual authoritative tone. "Blake, what have you done? The FBI just froze all our accounts. The foundation, the offshore holdings, everything." "Dad, $200 million, Blake. The entire Ramirez connection is exposed. They know about the shipments, the shell companies, all of it." Blake's face went from white to a sickly green. "Cartel? What cartel?" Sarah shook her head with mock sympathy. "You really didn't know? Your daddy's been washing money for the Ramirez cartel through Westbridge's educational foundation. All those generous donations from companies with names like Academic Partners, LLC, and Student Success Ventures. Drug money. Every penny of it. Your little grade-changing scheme was pocket change compared to his operation." The sound of helicopters grew from a distant thrum to a roaring presence overhead. Through the tall windows of the chemistry lab, black SUVs surrounded the building like predators circling prey. SWAT teams poured out in perfect formation. 47 arrest warrants, Sarah announced, checking her phone with the casual air of someone reading a grocery list. Teachers, board members, parents, even your sister's schools in Texas and California. This is what we call a clean sweep. Blake was sobbing now, all traces of his earlier arrogance washed away by tears and snot. "I didn't know about the cartel. I just sold some test answers. This isn't fair." "Fair?" Sarah crouched down to his level, her voice gentle but firm. "Was it fair when Emma Chen had to leave school because of the photos you spread? Was it fair when Marcus Williams got expelled for cheating he didn't commit? Or when Lily Vasquez tried to take her own life because of your systematic harassment?" "That was just high school stuff," Blake protested weakly. "Which gave us probable cause to investigate deeper," Sarah explained patiently. "You see, Blake, criminals always make the same mistake. They think small crimes stay small. But you handed us your father on a silver platter. Every transaction you made, every client you served, every threat you sent created a digital trail that led us right to the real money." The door burst open again. Federal agents in tactical gear flooded the room. As they pulled Blake to his feet and secured his hands behind his back with zip ties, he looked at Sarah desperately. "The 48 hours!" he gasped. "You said I had 48 hours." Sarah glanced at her watch, a simple digital model that probably cost less than Blake's shoelaces. "Actually, you had 47 hours and 58 minutes. I've been counting down since the moment you threatened me. Your time just ran out." They led Blake away, his expensive sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. Garrett and Mason followed, both too shocked to protest. Through the windows, Sarah could see similar scenes playing out across campus. Richard Harrington being extracted from a board meeting in handcuffs, the principal being read his rights. Even the groundskeeping staff, who'd helped move the cartel's product through the school's delivery systems. 6 months later, Westbridge Academy operated under federal oversight. The scandal had made international headlines. Elite private school exposed as cartel money laundering operation. 47 convictions had been secured, including Richard Harrington, who faced life in prison for money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to distribute narcotics. Blake received 15 years, with the possibility of parole in 7 if he maintained good behavior and cooperated with ongoing investigations. Sarah Chen received the FBI Director's Award for Excellence, making her the youngest recipient in the Bureau's history at 22. The ceremony was held in a small conference room in the J. Edgar Hoover Building, attended by a handful of senior officials who understood the significance of Operation Ghost Protocol. But Sarah wasn't at the ceremony. She was already embedded in another high school in another state, wearing another carefully crafted latex face and answering to another name. Setting up another laptop in another corner seat where the cameras couldn't quite see. Madison Conway this time. Quiet girl from Iowa who'd just transferred because her mom got a new job. Thick glasses, unfashionable clothes, the kind of invisible student that populated every American high school. She'd already identified the power players, mapped the social hierarchies, and noticed some troubling patterns. The FBI had learned from Westbridge. These weren't isolated incidents of privileged kids gone bad. There was a network, a system that used educational institutions as fronts for everything from money laundering to human trafficking. Each school Sarah infiltrated revealed another node in the web. But this new assignment felt different from the moment she'd walked through the doors. Students at Riverside Prep didn't just transfer out when they couldn't handle the pressure. They disappeared entirely. No forwarding addresses, no social media updates, no trace in any database Sarah could access. In 3 years, 17 students had vanished without explanation. The administration had explanations, of course. Family emergencies, sudden relocations, private tutoring arrangements. But Sarah had checked. The families were gone too. Entire households scrubbed from existence as efficiently as data wiped from a hard drive. She'd been investigating for 3 weeks when she found the note in her locker, not the usual threatening message scrawled in teenage handwriting. This was printed on expensive stationery, the kind that came from professional print shops. "We know who you are, Ghost. The Westbridge job was impressive, but you're swimming in deeper waters now." Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced since she was 14, sitting in an interrogation room while FBI agents explained her options. Fear, not the adrenaline rush of danger, but the cold, creeping sensation that she'd finally found something bigger than her skills could handle. Her handler hadn't responded to check-ins for 72 hours. Standard protocol was 24 hours maximum between contacts. Sarah had tried every emergency frequency, every backup channel, every dead drop they'd established. Silence. Even her direct line to the deputy director, a number only 4 people in the world possessed, went straight to a disconnected tone. Not voicemail, not a redirect. Just the electronic equivalent of a black hole. She tried reaching the other agents from the Westbridge operation. Marcus, Rosa, Mike. All the others who'd become a strange sort of family during their 8-month assignment. Every number disconnected. Every email bounced back. Every social media account deactivated. Sarah sat in her empty apartment, the one the FBI had arranged for her Madison Conway identity. The walls were bare, except for standard-issue furniture and a few props to sell her cover story. She stared at her reflection in the black screen of her powered-down laptop, seeing her real face for the first time in weeks. Not Sarah Mitchell, the mousy scholarship student. Not Madison Conway, the invisible transfer. Just Sarah Chen, 22 years old, possibly the best cyber operative the FBI had ever recruited, and completely alone. She opened her laptop and began typing, fingers flying across the keyboard with desperate efficiency. If the FBI network was compromised, she'd go deeper. Dark web forums where information was traded like currency. Encrypted channels that even government agencies struggled to monitor. Somewhere in the digital underground, there had to be answers. A single message appeared on a forum she'd never seen before, posted by a user with no history. No digital footprint, except for these words. The hunters have become the hunted. Westbridge was bait. You took it perfectly. Welcome to the real game, Ghost. Sarah's blood ran cold as she recognized the implication. Every victory she'd celebrated, every criminal she'd exposed, every system she'd dismantled had been allowed. Someone, or something, had been watching her demonstrate her capabilities like a lab rat running through a maze, proving her worth for recruitment into something far darker than anything the FBI had ever imagined. She closed the laptop and walked to her window, looking out at the suburban street that could have been anywhere in America. Normal houses with normal families living normal lives, blissfully unaware that their children attended schools that might be hunting grounds for something that made drug cartels look like amateur hour. Tomorrow she'd return to Riverside Prep, slip back into Madison Conway's skin, and continue investigating. But now, she understood the truth that every agent eventually learns. Sometimes when you stare into the abyss doesn't just stare back. It recruits you. Sarah Chen, the girl who'd hacked the Pentagon at 14, who'd brought down a $200 million criminal enterprise before she could legally drink, who'd thought she was the apex predator in the digital hunting grounds, whispered a single line to her reflection. When you hunt monsters, sometimes you find out you were never the apex predator. The suburban street outside remained peaceful, deceptively normal in its evening routine. Porch lights flickered on one by one, like dominoes falling in slow motion, each warm glow promising safety and domestic tranquility that Sarah knew was nothing more than illusion. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The Johnson family, 3 houses down, were hosting their weekly barbecue, smoke rising lazily into the darkening sky. Children's laughter echoed from backyards where games of tag stretched past bedtime. Everything appeared exactly as it should in Middle America. A perfect facade hiding rot beneath fresh paint. But Sarah knew better. Her trained instincts, honed through years of digital warfare and undercover operations, screamed warnings her conscious mind couldn't quite articulate. Somewhere in that postcard-perfect darkness, beyond the reach of streetlights and security cameras, something was watching, waiting, evaluating. Perhaps it had been watching all along, through every triumph she'd claimed, every criminal network she'd exposed. And for the first time in her career, Sarah Chen, the prodigy who'd turned FBI's most wanted hacker into their greatest asset, wasn't sure if she was the hunter or the prey.